I'm going to teach you how to animate in OBS. This is a live animation, and if you're curious how it works, it's pretty simple. The first thing you're going to want to do is check out this link. It takes you to the official OBS website, and it'll take you to a plugin called OBS Move. Before you do anything, make sure OBS is closed. If OBS is open while you try to download this or manage or change the files, if you're going to manually do this, make sure it's closed, because if it's not, you're going to have trouble. And so all you got to do is click download, and I would suggest using the Move Transition installer, the actual installer. If you have Linux or Mac, follow the download process for those. The likelihood that you're on Windows is probably pretty high. So just make sure you download the installer instead of just the raw files, because that just takes a lot less effort to set up. To know if you downloaded the plugin properly, just click these three dots here, click filters, and then you should see something called audio move. It should be the second one down from the list. If you have tons of other plugins, then it might be in a different location, but at least for most people who are watching this, it'll be right here. When you click on audio move, it's going to have a bunch of different options. You can name it whatever you want. Something I found out the hard way, and it's one of the only reasons why it took me so long to actually get this thing to work, but if you type in manually the name of the scene, then it won't work properly. What you're going to want to do is just go straight from this drop down menu, select the scene that you want a manipulation to happen, and select the source. It won't allow you to select a source in the drop-down menu until you've selected a scene. So if I go to recording voiceover, it'll have a couple different things. So if we click on monitor, so I can demonstrate this. As you can see, now that I have my source and my scene, when I talk, it's going to move. It's going to move the direction that is selected in the transform tab. The best way to kind of learn how it works, I'd say, is just play around with it. But if you want to do exactly what I have going on, I can show you how I have a more robust animation. It's actually a little more simple than it sounds. What you're going to want is at least two images, one with your mouth closed and one with your mouth open. You're going to want to layer them. I have them arranged in order from least open here to slightly open, a little more open, almost all the way open, and then fully open. And so what you're going to want to do is create that specific mouth animation as its own scene outside of everything else. So I just have this scene here. It's called test, and within test, the only thing that exists, or at least normally should exist, is the audio source that I'm using to animate and the 5. Technically, you can have as many images as you want, but in your case, you'll probably use at least 2, because without 2, you can't make an animation. As long as you have them in the right order, and then you have specifically your filters set correctly, then you won't have any issues at all. As you can see here, I have my closed mouth, which is face 5, at a threshold of 0. If I turn that up, the animation disappears until I start talking. So if you want to appear and disappear as you talk, then you can totally change the threshold and have that happen. And so I have that at 0, which means it doesn't take any noise at all from your audio source to show up. I have my easing at 47 because that just makes a smoother animation. You won't be able to tell the difference with that. If I'll use this as an example. If I turn my easing down for my rotation, then it's way more jittery, but I like it way more on the smooth side. So I keep it like in the 80s for rotation specifically. If you want to change the direction that something is going, just make sure that either put a minus or take away the minus, because as I do that, the direction in which I'm animating changes. You'll want the base value to be 0 most of the time, because if you change it to anything, then it changes the position at which you start. Play around with that, see if you like it, but for the most part, you'll just want to keep it at 0. I should have mentioned this earlier when talking about threshold, but basically just this is 0. My second face, which is slightly more open, is at a low threshold, but not 0. It just needs to be higher than 0. I have it at 5 just because I want to actually whisper to get that effect. The next one's 15, the next one is 25, and the next one, the fully open mouth, is 40. I had to play around with it a lot to get the exact animation that I have now. and I might mess around with it more in the future. If I feel that it's not smooth enough, if it's too jittery, then I might mess with the easing and or the threshold on each one, just to see. If you have like 15 of just the mouth moving, then it's going to be way more fleshed out in its animation. That's just up to you and how much work you want to put in for that. I always use input peak sample. That just, for me, gives the best result for anything that I'm using, both my rotation and my face. My source visibility is what I'm using in order to make mouth go up and down. It just changes the visibility dependent on the threshold. So when I'm talking at a maximum threshold, it'll put the image of my mouth being all the way open on top of every other image, and because they are grouped together, they will activate accordingly, and they're just going to be a perfect overlap. I like enable over and disable under. It's just not so jittery. If I change it, it'll be a little more jittery. Yeah, you can change the scale. If you talk louder, your scale is going to be, it'll get bigger or smaller. If you change position, oh, you can't even see that. Rotation, scale, bounds. I think I broke it a little bit big and now it's not working properly. Here we go. Fit to screen. Uh-oh. All right, it seems that I have unaligned this. How did I manage this? I've actually never had this issue. Somehow I really messed with this. Transform, reset. Oh, okay. We just figured out live how to, oh boy. Good thing Control Z exists. All right, so make sure you don't select individual images in your group. Just make sure you're selecting the whole group. That seems to have been my issue. So once you have it in its own scene and it's all grouped together, it'll look something like this in its own little scene. You'll just go to whatever other scene you have and add that scene that has your animation in as a source. And then you'll click scene right here and voila. And then you can move it around, resize it how you want, etc. I hope I can edit this down to make it a little more cohesive. I feel like I'm ranting on a bit, but this is pretty cool. If you want to use it on like a live stream, you can use it on a live stream. You can use it in recorded videos. It doesn't matter. There's so many options available to you. And it's something that I really hope I can use myself to add more personality to the videos that I make. If you have any questions, just leave a comment. Nobody watches my videos, so I can probably reply to it without too much issue. I don't think I'll get that many people asking questions, but if you have any, just let me know down in the comments. Yeah, I'm curious to see what projects you guys create too, so let me know what kind of things you're doing with this, because it's pretty cool, and I want to see who else is interested in making PNG animations or whatever on YouTube. Thank you guys.